All right. Jim, do you want to kick us off and give a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having us. Good to be here. Jim Shea with JP Morgan Chase. I work in our global real estate group. I've had the fortune of leading up our 270 project headquarters team for the past 7 years.
Everyone here, everyone in New York knows that. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Julius Marchwicki. I am our Vice President and General Manager for Digital Solutions at Johnson Controls.
Good afternoon. My name is Rawa Milner. I come from Accenture. I'm an AI value enterprise strategy with our data and AI practice. However, I come from 21 years of sustainability work across multiple sectors and multiple industries.
Awesome. What a panel. So, look, we'll keep going down the line. And I just want to start with, what the biggest shift you're seeing in terms of how organizations are approaching sustainability and, modern ways of capturing data. And, Jim, you've got such an exciting example to tell us about. So, over to you.
Sure. I'd say, like most of the people in the room, there's a lot of big companies here that have been doing this for a while. I think sustainability is now beyond table stakes. It's something that we've been doing for a long time as a building industry and getting better and better at it. I think where the shift has become, we've been talking about smart buildings for a long time, at least for us and what we've seen, and we're doing this all around the globe in our 70 million square feet of real estate. So we're trying to continually deliver sustainable projects. Our real estate footprint, we committed to being carbon neutral and achieved it back in 2020, 2022, somewhere around there. So we've been doing this for a while. I think the change has been, at least what we've seen, it is the accessibility to data. It's getting a lot cheaper to get, a lot easier to aggregate in the big data compute. And those three things, and for us, coupled with some of our own networking strategies and how we're putting more and more things on our network, how we're pushing more things to the cloud, there are a lot of things that just have really converged quickly over the past 5-7 years, where now we feel like, and I'm sure everybody does based on the conversations earlier, it's all right there for the taking. That the ability to take in big data sets, quickly analyze them, and use them for things like building efficiencies, AL and MI, and getting into predictive maintenance, getting into experience and comfort for the people in the buildings, reduction in energy, maintenance, all those things. It just feels like that's where it's quickly gained a lot of steam. And like when sustainability maybe 15 or 20 years ago, it was being talked about, it was always a cost thing was the first thing. It's going to cost 30% more to do a sustainable building or LEED Gold or whatever. You don't talk about that anymore. You just have to do it. And at least at everyone's firm, AI is the first thing that's coming out of people's minds, and that trickles down through all our organizations. We run a big real estate company for a massive bank. And so as we're trying to just apply AI ourselves, we look at different ways that we do transactions, we look at different ways that we manage buildings, and we're just trying to keep up with everybody else and figuring out where we can best apply it.
Yeah, I love what, Jim, you said there about the accessibility of data. I think the thing that AI, especially generative AI, has brought to many of our customers and Johnson Controls itself is the ability to ask really simple questions and get a really simple answer back. How many people are in my building right now? How many are in this room? How much floor plan do I have? How much does that cost me? Those answers used to be a lot of integration of Excel sheets. I think I remember Katie when she was talking about what it took for her team to go and do carbon accounting, right? It's a whole lot of Excel sheet, merge, a lot of investment banking, keyboard, Excel mastery. AI has really made the data about our buildings and our consumption and how people use our spaces really easy. Becomes suddenly very simple for anyone to have access to that information, and that's paid dividends. It makes it really easy and much more I'll say sustainable for the individuals that are using space inside of buildings to quickly ascertain what they need, what they will need in the future. So I find that that's one of the biggest shifts is this accessibility to data has empowered a lot of people to make more informed decisions.
I think the major shift that we saw is building also on what has been said so far is the shift from passive monitoring to more active orchestration. So we're finally now trying to close the loop between insight and action. So if I'm ever going to use an analogy, think of our buildings where for years we've been putting a fitness tracker on them. And so we collected a lot of data. We collected information about occupancy, temperature, energy, consumption. However, the building had nothing to do with this data. You had an individual who would look at the dashboard and analyze, interpret the data, decide on action, and execute on the action. Where we see things are going is that with Gen AI, actually more agentic AI, we're seeing that the same building is changed into basically, let's say, the physician and the personal trainer. So it can self-diagnose, it can prescribe solution, and it can execute on this solution. So for the first time, we're trying to basically close the gap on the difference between, on the gap between insight and action. And the driver behind that, and Katie, to your point, coming from 21 years working on sustainability, I no longer engage with, is it a sustainability or operational efficiency or innovation or financial feasibility? Like, I think I'm past this phase at this point. And so because it became obvious to the boardroom at this time that for them to report financially, not only to meet the requirement of the ESG reporting, but to actually be more financially feasible and to report financially and to be successful in managing operations successfully, they have to, like I said, close this loop and use the data efficiency.
And just coming back to you and building on that, so can you talk about some of the ways that Accenture are taking the clients through that and kind of helping to bring that to life for buildings?
The immediate value of AI is optimization. However, and I'm being very optimistic and just watching how Gen AI technology is evolving. If you think of optimization and where we're heading past optimization, actually where we're heading is we're becoming more system level creators and negotiators within the system. So think of what we did with optimization. Now we can take with generative AI. I'll give you just simple example. With generative AI, we can actually generate thousands of net zero design for buildings where the planner is no longer a drafter, but rather a curator of multiple design possibilities for net zero. If you deploy agentic AI, we push further, and it becomes actually more impactful in terms of going back to what Sunny mentioned. I think it's time for consumers to actually participate in the energy, for example, energy question. And to that, I look at the built environment and I see agentic AI could be basically a tool for our built environment to become this active economic negotiator with the grid or citizen of the grid. So think of agentic AI being, or AI agent being deployed over your portfolio of buildings, and that AI agent will negotiate on when to sell energy during the peak, when to buy when the energy is the cheapest, and when to coordinate EV charging stations so that we don't have strain. Of course, I have to mention that with our clients, the balance and the secret is sequencing to transformation. So we start with getting their data house in place. Of course, we start with the strategy at the highest level, and I know there is many point of view, like we don't have time for strategy and everything is changing fast, so we don't need a strategy. I think even if it was like a one workshop exercise, we do need a strategy so that we avoid death by 1,000 POC cuts. So what we do is basically get the client house in terms of data in order. We focus on optimization and cultivating quick wins. And then when this happened, we go and deploy agentic AI solutions that can help them actually transform and capture more value.
Awesome, thank you. So Julius, earlier we heard from Katie about the 1 million data points a minute that OpenBlue is collecting. That's a lot of data. How does AI help customers to cut through all that data?
Oh, yes. Well, going back to that accessibility, processing and looking at graphs and charts day in and day out. My first experience at JCI 3.5 years ago, I sat with one of our energy experts, and they looked at this line on a graph, and they were like, "Haha, this chiller has a problem." And I was like, "How did you do that?" And he's like, "Well, just look at the shape of this graph and chart." And there are thousands of professionals out there that can look at this graph and chart and say, like, there's something wrong with this building, there's something wrong with this chiller, this is not operating effectively or efficiently, this is a short cycling pump, for example. I think AI has made that type of insight, that type of intelligence accessible to non-professionals. And for those that have been around the building space for a long time, we know that building expertise and facility management and the types of expertise is slowly dwindling, right? There's a silver wave. And so, we have a very large problem, right, in terms of expertise, in terms of labor. And so I think AI, I'll just keep repeating what Jim said, this idea of accessibility, taking what was once several years of facility expertise and perhaps a thermodynamics engineering degree, is now much easier, right? We can use technology, we can use these data points, we can use artificial intelligence to make that much more accessible to non-experts, and those non-experts can begin to make intelligent and informed decisions, or they can be in the loop of autonomous decisions. So we would love, and we aspire to a vision. We do this in some of our products, not all of them, but in some of our products, we autonomously take action. We'll go and we'll fix a problem, or we'll go and we'll change things so that it's optimized and perfect. But in other times, we know that a human's going to want to be able to say, yes, I'm willing to make that change. Yes, I want to fix this problem when you find it. But we want to be thoughtful about how we approach that.
Brilliant, thanks, Julius. Jim, can you bring it to life for us? Can we hear some success stories around AI sustainability in buildings?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it is still early days. I'd say that. 270 Park, we had the opportunity to think of the future. It's a 100-year bet for our firm on a new headquarters for the future, the city, a tool for our clients and our employees. For it's one of the greatest talent retention tools, hopefully ever. But we also manage 75 million square feet of real estate around the world, and so the shiny new toy is great. It gives you a great opportunity to plan, pilot, and really think things through and get to the next great thing, and really think. The hard part about that is what's going to be long-term and how do you make it flexible and adaptable in a world that's changing very, very fast. The bigger challenge, and maybe the more important opportunity, is what are you doing with your existing portfolio? That is much more a challenge, as everybody here knows. And so how can we apply everything that we're studying, learning, going through to the buildings that we know we're not going to tear down, we know we want to reuse, we know what we want to adapt, we know that need to adapt. And that, it's a big problem. It takes a lot of money, but hopefully that's as much as the opportunity that we get out of this. So 270, we've built an intelligent building network that puts all of our building systems onto our technology network. First time ever, really big challenge from a cyber standpoint, security standpoint, but we had the time to develop that out. But we did it because we believe it's the right thing for us moving forward to collect all that data, to have all that data, and do portfolio optimization, not just building and locally, but to look at it much bigger and broader, and go at every step of the way, everything that everyone's talked about today, how can we find those little areas and make them better? And if we're more efficient on our energy use, we're going to save money. That's great, but we can also create better spaces for people. That building happens to have 3 times the code minimum for outside air bringing into, which is a challenge in New York because New York gets the hot, you get a humid day like today, you also get the cold. So that we found that as the balance point between bringing a lot of fresh air and all the work that we've done with Dr. Joe Allen at Harvard and others, and the clear benefits of better air quality for your cognitive ability, productivity, just being healthier. But that air has to be cleaned. And, New York is a tough environment. And so finding the balance of all those benefits on one side and being very energy efficient and sustainability, and that's where AI can really bring you forward. On paper, it can do this. If we can process the data, we can be much smarter about pre-cooling, turning it off and on when we want it. There's a huge energy savings there. And as I think the prior panel said, when you have that energy savings, you can just do something else with it, right? It's not just abandoning it. Is what else can you do with it when you know the data is more and more important? And so, that's one example that we're starting to see the benefits of. The building is brand new. We need to finish it. We need to occupy it. We need the data in order to do that. But it's happening much faster. I think a big challenge is, as alluded to, is boiling the ocean. We spent probably a year and a half debating what is the right data to actually be, spending this time to bring in and compute, and what are we going to do with it? I think at the end of the day, we got down to 7 integrations, which for a building that is that big and that many systems, that's not many things, but those are the most important things. Those are the ones that you get the most value out of, either from the efficiency, the productivity, or experientially. And so, that it's early days. We're going to now quickly though try and apply that to other areas, and there's a lot more to come. But it's been a great journey in kind of starting from the art of the possible, which is a challenging place to start, where you have nothing in front of you. Great and a challenge. But how, as I mentioned before, how it's all really evolved over the past 5 years, and the speed at which we've been able to do it and build it on a platform that we think has that future flexibility and adaptability, I think will be what hopefully makes it successful and achieve all the things that we want to.
Nothing in front of you, and the railway lines below you makes it quite tricky. So just following up on that, what do you see as the key enablers? Is it technology, leadership, partnership?
There's no doubt for our firm, it's leadership. Jamie, the board, the operating committee set out this vision of, an investment in our firm and in the city and building this 100-year building in the future. And that's really what it was when you take that long-term play. We didn't want to do, and I would be remiss to say, we build great spaces all over the world, year in and year out. We opened 3 new 1 million square foot buildings in India last year alone. We are constantly building new spaces for our employees and our clients, and we're trying to build them the best that they can be from an occupancy perspective, from a sustainability perspective. So that is the firm's leadership and the belief that real estate is an enabler for our business and our needs. And so that gives us a lot of a runway to start with. Then, we have an unbelievably talented people in David Arena's leadership team across transactions and location strategy, portfolio and facilities management, our retail branch network, which is 5,000 branches across the lower 48 states. The team is all bought into this, and the partnership that we can get from 60,000 technologists across the firm. They have day jobs and they're running the bank, but we're able to now find areas within, whether it's our chief administrative office or through client relationships and other partnerships like that, where we're getting access to great partners, without a doubt, on the technology side, on the real estate side, and everything in between, that at least for us, there's that, again, accessibility, but the partnerships that are there, that comes from top down, the leadership. But, our great thing about our firm, and obviously I've drunk the Kool-Aid because I believe in it, the firm commits to something and we do it. So whether it's the drive on sustainability, where our location strategies in real estate, building, a headquarters building in New York when a lot of other people wouldn't have done that, that it is a top-down approach that's been pretty successful for us.
Brilliant, thank you. So final question, and we'll come back down the line. So Rawa, we'll start with you. Looking ahead a few years out, what do you see the role of kind of AI in buildings?
the absolute ultimate optimist, and I see a lot of potential. And just because I feel like there is the never let a crisis go to waste, and I feel like we are at a very, very seriously dangerous point. And that will require different response, and I think we will up to the challenge. Going back to the technology, I think the most promising concept is that we need to challenge ourselves on like what the Gentech AI will help us to challenge ourselves to find another definition to what building is. I mentioned in an earlier response to your question, at some point the built environment is going to be this active economic citizen of the grid, and that's not a traditional definition of what a building is. So if we look at what the technology may be able to help us, I can see 3 pillars. One of them is almost simple, but self-designing building, for example. So think of Katie, gone are the days where you will do the carbon calculations manually. Is done. Within the next, I would say, like several months, given the pace of progress, we will be able, the developer will be able to provide limitations to the agentic AI and basically budget, site, whatever information, and they will have a plan. Think of site-wide district planning, and I've been engaged in master planning at the district level. And there is a lot of delay in decision. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. We do something called surrogate modeling, where you develop this sophisticated mathematical models, and you model wind, water. It's rarely ever that all the systems are modeled in a holistic, systemic way. Simultaneously. I see this as a possibility now. We will be able to actually do all these modeling simultaneously. The second pillar I see the digital twin as a CEO. So think of a building as a CEO. Each building will have a digital tower. And that digital tower will be a replica, but this time the replica, because of the Gentech AI, is going to be like, it will operate as a CEO. So basically, the system in itself will make decisions on how to manage the budget to meet financial and carbon KPIs, how it will have predictive analysis capabilities where ahead of time they can predict failures in certain components of the system maybe a year ahead of time. The last and never the least, and this is where I'm very, very happy about this development, where I see it going, because people are, generally speaking, are very concerned over agentic AI taking and where the humanity is going. And I see this really the next phase of our civilization. It's basically building as a service for the well-being of humanity. Let's think of how can we actually design buildings and deploy technology where this building becomes the ultimate purpose. And Christine, you spoke to the importance of of our employees and how we manage our buildings. Buildings in the future are going to be the sole purpose of them, and that's actually the purpose of sustainability, is to manage buildings where human beings are healthier, more productive, and so the entire system. I know I'm very optimistic, but going back to Jim's point, thinking portfolio, we have to remember that 50% of the buildings that will be standing in 2030 is not built yet. Of course, that says that already 50% stands, so we need to deal with legacy portfolio. But 50% of the building are not standing yet. There is a massive opportunity before us.
That's a pretty exciting and compelling vision. I'm not far off from where your head's at. I think everything we know about how artificial intelligence work and how agents work is, assigning them a very specific, very detail-oriented task. Having a building, right, that has a multitude of, effectively what are AI agents, each of them with a very specific role, whether it's space planning or capital management or maintenance or carbon emissions or energy tracking. I think you can envision a world where we have, a number of AI agents that have very specific purposes that are brought together by what effectively becomes another agent whose job it is to prioritize based on business priorities or based on the priorities it's been trained on, to balance all of those outcomes, right? And so, my belief in the future of what we can do or achieve digitally, right, is a number of AI agents powered by really robust, well-trained data that can, make decisions and balance those decisions against business criteria, against sustainability outcomes, against decarbonization goals, whatever the case may be for that business, all while improving the human experience, improving the productivity, making buildings, amazing and a great place to be. So that's where I'm at.
Tough to follow. I agree with both of what you said. I agree with all of what you both said. I think, and again, in my own personal perspective and reflecting on the prior panel, the public-private partnership is what's going to make this successful. There's no doubt the private side is not going to wait for the public side to solve this problem. It's too fast, it's too out there, and you start to see the investments that Microsoft and others are making already. So that's going to accelerate things, I think, really help. The more the problem gets talked about, it does matter. A point that's made a couple times, it matters to the world, it matters a lot to the next generation. I think there's a great opportunity for, I don't think I'm that old, but when you start to deal with kids coming out of college and how AI is in their lives already, we're trying to use ChatGPT to make an email more efficient. Like, it's checkers and chess, and I'm playing checkers. So I think that there's a great opportunity for the actual use of AI, using it properly, in ways that we don't even know are out there yet, but they're going to be used to solve these problems and create these opportunities. And I think about data centers, which we have a big data center business, and how important they are to everything we do. Self-sustaining data centers, drop one down with a mini nuclear with it, and you have a data center in a shorter period of time. I think speed to market is going to be very interesting to see how that goes. And I personally would like to see robotics develop more again, from the real estate perspective. There's, I think, an opportunity that will continue to exist. Well, there's an opportunity that exists and hopefully will be developed a bit more, and that does run on AI. I know it's a little tangential, but the opportunity to use more robots, not necessarily in construction, but in building maintenance, and using AI to do facade inspections and see degradation before it happens, which allows you to fix it earlier in your building, and then your envelope maintains its integrity. Things like that, they really will matter a lot over time and make things more sustainable.
Excellent. Yeah, there you go. Look, I promised I'd get you there on time. So thank you to the panel.